Hi everyone, it's Toya here again. I'm coming today to do another part of my testimony series. For those who have been watching, you have probably already seen ages 0 through 12. Today I plan to do 13 and 14. I don't plan to do 15 and part of 16, but it just depends on how long the video runs because I'm going to try to get it done no more than an hour or a couple seconds over, but no much longer than that. So yeah, my phone is turned sideways, so if it looks like I'm looking somewhere else, I'm actually just looking straight ahead. But of course, it depends on where the camera is positioned. So as always, I'd like to open up in prayer before starting to share this part of the series. Father God, Yah of Abraham, Yah of Isaac, Yah of Jacob, Yah of Israel, Yah the Father, creator of all living things, Yah the Father of Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, our King, our Savior. Father, I come to you today in the most humblest way. Ask that you help me to get the words out that needs to be said, Father. I pray that you bless this video, Father. I pray that this video goes out to those who you want to hear. I pray that those who have the ear may hear, Father. I pray that you strengthen me to deliver your message. I'm sorry. I'm so used to saying that. I pray that you strengthen me to deliver this testimony, Father. I pray that you keep me upheld to do such, Father. I pray that you unlock any things that I may have forgotten to write down, Father. I pray that you lead me and guide me and give me the strength, as it's difficult to talk about these things, Father. But I pray that this helps your daughter and your children's, Father, hearing this testimony, Father. I thank you for today and every day. I repent of all sins, Father. In your name I pray so that it may be done. Amen and hallelujah. Okay, so as I mentioned in the last video, I wrote down 13, the year I'd love to forget. But it's going to end up merging with 14 also, so guess I'll get going. And again, I have notes because there's so many things I don't want to forget anything. But there will be times that I'll just use it as like points and then just talk about the stories. So 13, I ended up going to a new school, you know, after the divorce and everything. And we ended up moving, my mother, brother, and I. So I got into a fight on the first day of school. I remember the girl being jealous because her boyfriend had talked to me. He wasn't trying to date or anything, but we used to live in a certain complex with my mother and father before the divorce. And we lived in that complex, I guess, before, and we ended up moving back. So I guess when the guy had saw me, he was friends of my brother. I think he was one grade under my brother. So he was just excited, and he was like, oh, you guys live around here again, and I thought you guys moved. And we were just, you know, I just told him like, oh yeah, you know, we just moved to another complex, you know, but we're still here. He's like, oh, where's your brother? And I was like, oh, he's in high school now, because my brother was 4 grades higher than me. So I was like, oh, he's in high school now. And that's all he simply said. Tell your brother I said hi, you know, I'd like to catch up. And I said, okay, sure. And the moment that he stepped away from me, like the girlfriend came up to me with her friends, and she was just like yelling at me. She was irate. And it wasn't as if I got to talk and tell her that all he did, I mean, again, there was no hugging, anything. All he simply did was ask about my brother. And I would have told her that, but she didn't even give me a chance. She just started yelling, and she started swinging, just got all irate and like trying to start fighting me. Most part she was just yelling and stuff, but then when the principal came and of course got in the middle, then she wanted to start swinging and everything. And I in no way saw how any of that situation was my fault, because I didn't even know who these people were. I mean, I knew the guy, of course, because of my brother. It's his friend, and he was gone when this situation had occurred. But other than that, I had no idea about anything. But they were saying that since I was involved, that I was suspended as well. But I guess, you know, I was used to this stuff. So at the time, I had a best friend's house, and I considered it as her house is my safe haven. My brother, he was friends with her. She had a foster brother whom he was friends with. He used to go play basketball with at the courts, and they were like really good friends. So I think one day my brother had seen the little girl at the time. She was like walking her dog or something, and he asked the guy like, oh, is that your little sister? And the guy was like, oh yeah, that's my foster sister. And my brother said, oh, well, I have a little sister too. They look like they're about the same age. Maybe they can hang out. So that's how I ended up meeting her. And I want to say at the time she could have been maybe third grade. I was in about fourth grade. So I just give that background and say that this is who I spent most of my time with, her and her mom, like especially after my parents separated, because her mom was a stay-at-home mom. And after my parents separated, it's like, well, my mom and dad were still together, I would still see my mom. Like, even though she mostly worked like two jobs or like night shift, like I remember us all still having like family dinners together, or all being together like on the weekends and stuff. But it was like after the separation of her and my father, like I rarely ever saw my mom. So I spent most of my time with that friend whom I said house was like a safe haven. Her and her mom, I was with them most of the time. Like, I would ask my mom, could I spend the night over there? She always said yeah. So I was with them every weekend, to the point where I was even sleeping over there on school days. Because at first we were going to the no, yeah, because when I transferred, we ended up going to the same school again. So I would be able to spend the night, and her mother would bring us to school in the morning, like get us breakfast and stuff like that. So that was like my safe haven, and that's one of the things that took things off my mind. The fact of being able to go to her house with her mom, because like I was saying, my brother was going into high school, or he had started high school. So he had like a different group of friends. His friends were older, and he was kind of spending a lot of time with them. So it was just basically me. So I spent a lot of time with them, to kind of, get over things. So that summer of year 13, I remember being hit by a car while I was on a bike at a crosswalk. So this is pretty interesting since it was a crosswalk. So I believe this was the last day of school for us. I want to say that I feel like it was the last day of school. So we had all went to the convenience store, like in our little complex. It was a convenience store called White Hand Pantry. So right behind the apartment complex, it's like it was a grass field. All you have to do is just walk over the little crosswalk, and then you're, in the little store area. So it was actually a group of us, anywhere between 5 and 10. So we went to the store as usual, as we always did. Came back from the store. Now the guy that was there, one of our guys' friends from school, he had let me ride his bike, just like from the store to the house. It was his new bike. And I remember when I seen the car approaching, they really weren't even going that fast. I was at a crosswalk, so I was on the guy's bike. So what I did was, I have this thing where I try to get eye contact to know whether it's okay or not to go. So I looked over at them, to see if it was okay. Now I remember them giving me a head nod, like a gesture, as if go ahead. So I go, across the crosswalk, and then next thing you know, I'm hit, and I'm like on my back. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm in confusion because I remember them telling me to go. Now the people with me had told me that they were laughing, and they just went around me and continued to go. So I remember that the guy whose bike it was, he was actually a little more concerned about his bike than me, because I remember the wheel had turned, and it was like his brand new bike. So I guess he was more concerned about his bike. Maybe he didn't want to get in trouble with his parents, but I mean, that's fine. So but actually we did get the license plate number, because I mean, for one, like I said, it approached me very slowly, then it went around. So we were able to get the license plate number. And I actually went to the hospital, and I had to get x-rays on my lower back, because when I fell, it hurt my lower back. So I got x-rays, and the x-rays, they said that they had found bruising, and everything with the x-rays. And we also got the license plates. So I guess the police was involved, but by us being so young, myself obviously didn't talk to the police. And my friend, who also said that she had got hit on her leg a little bit when they were going around, trying to go around her because she was standing in the way comforting me, her mother and my mother were the ones that they talked to. So I was young, I didn't know anything, but my mom told me that the case was dropped and that nothing came out of it. So I just let it go, which was pretty much ridiculous. The fact that we had the license plate number, the fact that my x-rays showed that I had bruising, and nothing was done about it. But again, I'm kind of used to these things happening in my life. So I stayed at the friend's house that I said was like a safe haven for me, because like I said, it was a summer. So while my back, which to this day I can say my back has never quite fully recovered, just being honest, but I stayed at my friend's house, while I was recovering, and not just for that reason, but like I said, I was always there anyways. But my mom, like, she didn't take off work or anything. She just continued to, like I said, she always pretty much had like two jobs or worked extra hours or anything. So even that day, she didn't take off or anything. So I mean, I was sad and everything, but I was blessed to be alive, and I just went on to my friend's house. So that same summer of 13, my friend, I'm trying so hard not to say these people's names. I'm sorry, because it's like I could see their image in my mind when I think of the story. But my friend, she was snatched by a stranger. Now, this story is actually, I can get this done pretty short, but we were on our way to that same store, the White Hen Pantry, and it was gonna be me, her, and another friend. But the other friend, she had to get dressed. She wasn't done getting dressed and showering and stuff, so she told me and the one friend to go to the store ahead of her. But she told us that she would meet us at the bench. Like, what that is when we used to go to White Hen Pantry, we used to cut through the grass. Like, it was like this like hill type grass, like shortcut. You just walk through the grass. I mean, you probably could get to the store, and I know it had to be less than 10 minutes. But there was another way you can go too, which is like all the way around. Like, you got to go on the sidewalk and go down. It's not too much longer. It's just the fact that when you go on the grass, like, the apartments are literally right there. You can just cut through. So all of us always took the shortcut. So me and the friend had went, and I mean, it's daylight. It's probably 1 o'clock, bright, sunny as ever. So my friend, she actually wanted to go to the store to get, I think she was going to get like a pregnancy test. And I think she was a year older than me. She might have been 14. I was 13. So we went to the store, normal, that same White Hen Pantry that we probably went to every day of the summer. And on the way back from the store, I want to mention too that my friend, she's a white girl. I have a reason that I'm mentioning this, and you'll see later. So on the way back from the store, we're like almost there, back to the apartments where everyone else is at. Because when the other friend told us that she would meet us back at the apartments, we were meeting to hang out with our friends, our other girl and guy friends and everything. All was going to meet at the picnic table. But you have this little small bridge that you walk over before getting back there. So we come down the little hill part, and then I see this man like running. He looked as if to be a runner, like somebody exercising. So he has like a white cap on. I could never forget this. A white hat on. He has an orange shirt on with the sleeves out, shorts on. He has like these Walmart, like, just simple type running shoes. So when I see him coming down the hill, me naturally, I step to the side because, common courtesy, you're thinking you're in this person's way and they're trying to pass by you. So I step to the side, and then when I step to the side, like, he grabs my friend. So I'm young. I'm just standing there and I'm thinking, like, why is this man grabbing my friend? Because it's like he couldn't actually take her, but he actually had his arm like behind her. I could say this man could have been like, looking back by us being 13, 14, he could have been, I guess, his mid-30s or something. Maybe mid-30s. Yeah, mid-30s, close to 40. And he had his arms like around her, like bear hugging her from behind. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, it looked like he was playing. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, okay, this doesn't add up. You know what I'm saying? We don't know this guy. And like I said, my friend Ken, I almost said her name. Father, forgive me. Please forgive me, guys. I almost said her name. My friend, she is white, and then he is white. So at first, my mind tried to say, well, do they know each other? Do we know this man? And then something clicked in me immediately, like, no, like danger, like bad, like, run. So like I went into shock. And I guess I screamed this crazy scream. Like, I don't remember. I just remember running because I remember my mind saying, okay, you're at this bridge. And I mean, you can get to the rest of the group of people in like 30 seconds. Like, that's how close it seemed. Like 30 seconds if I'm running, So something said run. So I ran because I remember, like I said, the other girl told us we're all going to meet you at the bench. The benches as usual, So I ran over there and I was telling them, like, because it was like mostly all of our guy friends. I was like, oh, the guy, he grabbed her, blah, blah, blah. You guys need to go get her. She's in the field. And I'm like crying and freaking out. They didn't even ask a question. Like, they all zoomed in the field. It had to be about 5 to 10 guys. They zoomed in the field. And I'm sitting there with the other girl. I'm telling her what happened. I'm freaking out. Then I see my friend. She walks back out through the, the little bridge thing. I see her, like, she looks like she's crying and like she's distraught. So I'm like, I run to her. She gives me a hug and she told me she was so scared. She thought she'd never see me again. And she told me that she wasn't scared at first because she just thought it was one of our friends messing around. But she said the scream that I let out was like so terrifying. Like, I couldn't hear it. Like I said, I was in shock. I ran. But she said it was so terrifying that, it scared her. And that's when she started screaming and freaking out. Now, she said she was never able to see the man's face because after I did that scream and ran, she said he let her go. So she was like sitting on the ground. Like he was just like kind of, I guess, trying to tussle like with her or pull her a little bit, but he couldn't. So he dropped her, she said, after I ran. And she said, so she turned around and she was able to get a glance of him. Not his face though, because he was running away. And she said his hair. She said his hair was like my hair, referring to herself. She said his hair was like her hair. So that's why I mentioned the fact of her being white, because we have different hair. Myself and her, of course. So she was just saying his skin and his hair was as if her hair. Okay. I say this all for a reason. Trust me. It has nothing to do with. So when she gets out and sees me again, like she's freaking out crying. I'm crying. We're hugging each other. We're so happy to see each other. And our friends are in the field looking for this guy. Okay. And the field had no trees. It was just like like a hill. It was like hills. So they couldn't find him. But one thing my brother brought out was he probably was in that bar, because when we had got to the police station and made the police report, they said that it was a man who ran in there. A man who came and told them that these girls were getting attacked by some black man. And that was told to us by the police. My brother always said that man who came in there and said that was the actually offender himself. And my brother said the reason why that man tried to say it was a black man was because he was trying to throw the scent off of himself. You know what I mean? So it was because next to the White Hand Pantry, it was like a pizza place, like a bar / thing. So my brother always had told me that he believed that man who came in there and said that lie, that it was a black man, was the actual offender himself and tried to throw the sin off of himself. And I 100,000% believe that, because I've seen that man to this day. I wish I can get his face out of my mind, but I still can't. Like, that was a white, middle-aged man. Like I said, I know his outfit. I know everything he had on. He was heavy set. If I knew how to draw, I can draw him to this day. And then that's why I said, and Kendra also testified to the cops that he had the same skin as her and the same hair as her. And she's seen it, like, from him turned around, because he had a half-cut shirt on. She's able to see his skin and she's able to see his hair. But I say this to say, when we got into the police station, they were interrogating us. They basically separated us, and they were basically interrogating us as if we were liars. And I believe, like what my brother was saying, it's because of whatever testimony that guy had gave the cops before. We never got to see him. I guess that's what made them call the cops at the place. And they were trying to say we're lying. So they started interrogating us, asking us, why do we go to the store for? What do we go to the store to buy? Why were we there? And I'm just thinking, like, why does it matter? We go to White Hand Pantry all the time, so it shouldn't matter what we were there for, And they were just like harassing us and interrogating us. So I just want to say this to say the enemy has always hated me. He deliberately flipped the script on us. And the saddest part about it was they admitted that they had cameras in those fields. They said that there were cameras in like the little lights, like the little light poles, because they said, oh yeah, we seen you guys as friends in the field, like what was going on. And I told them, well, after I let them know that this man had just tried to get my friend, they ran in the field to try to find him. So that in itself lets us know that if you can see our friends on camera in the field, then why couldn't you see the man that grabbed my friend? So that let me know back then, even at a young age, that, the devil is really against people. And the fact that they wouldn't even prosecute to get the man who did this, I thought was ridiculous. I just want to say that this entire situation shook me up, okay? It being 12 or 1 o'clock p.m. noon, us had always gone to that store. We lived in what we thought was a nice neighborhood, we thought was an alternative to living in like a dangerous place. And the fact that that had happened and the person had not even been arrested or anything like that, that really struck a lot of fear in me. As I said, I went in shock that day. I was in complete shock when this happened. I didn't even talk. Like, I was terrified. I didn't say a word. So, when I had called my mom, at first I had always felt guilty for years for running because I don't even remember making myself run. It was like my feet just moved, like, get out of there. But her mother told me that she was grateful that I ran because she said that that's what made him let her go. And also, she said that's the reason why her daughter was alive, is because the man knew that he couldn't get away with it by me going to get help. But it always made me feel guilty, of course. So when I call my mom, I'm devastated. I'm in shock. My friend asked me would I stay the night with her that night because she was scared. I guess she didn't want to be alone. So I didn't want to hurt her feelings and be like, oh no, I don't want to stay. So my only hope was my mom. I was hoping that when I called my mom, because she knew the story, she knew what happens and everything, I was so desperately hoping that my mom was like, no, you need to come home and, we need to talk about what happened, or I want to be with you tonight. You know what I mean? Because this is a very serious situation. I'm 13. But when I called my mom and said, oh, she wants me to stay over, my mother told me yes. She told me yes. She told me, yes, you can stay over there. You can stay with her. And I stayed. But to be honest with you, all I wanted that night more than anything, that evening, was to stay with my mom. Not only the fear of what had happened with my friend getting snatched, the fact that I was in that interrogation thing for like a few hours and I was just shook up. My whole spirits was just uncomfortable. And I just wanted to go home more than anything. So that didn't happen. So I guess moving on, let's see where I am. All right, still 13. I lost my virginity to a guy that was about 2.5 years older than me. We were dating for a short time, and I believe he loved me. Okay, so quick backstory on that. I'm going to do that as quick as I can. So, basically, the friend I had whose house was a safe haven to me. Now, she at the time had two foster brothers that came, different foster brothers that came. Now, it was one that was like my age group, and I actually liked him. Like, I thought he was fun, I mean, I liked him in the sense of, like, my mindset wasn't trying to engage in intercourse in any way, not like that. But just personality-wise, like, I don't know if I mentioned in my last video, I've always claimed to people who seem like they had, like, pain or hurt behind them because it always made me want to, like, figure them out, be there for them and comfort them. So the one that was my age, I can tell he was in a lot of pain because when I first met him, like, he would sleep like with knives on his pillow. He was like extremely paranoid. And I don't know how long they had, if or how long they had been in the foster care system, but I know they might have been there for a little bit, maybe in transitioning. I'm not 100% sure. Or it could have been things that happened in his past that he just never wanted to discuss. So, I was coming over there to her house and he was always kind of quiet, kind of reserved, kind of standoffish, kind of, paranoid, kind of guarded. And to me, those are always the people that I kind of cling to and gravitate to my entire life. And you'll see that as the testimony continues on. So for me, I wanted to figure him out. I wanted to hang out with him. I would annoy him. I would make him laugh. And I actually got him to laugh. I actually got him to, he would laugh, it would be like this little simple laugh, like kind of leave me alone. But, eventually me and him became best friends. And I actually got through that toughness, that hardness. Everybody would call him mean and stuff, but he actually let me in, and I mean, to this day, I have spoken to him and, he showed me his family and things like that. So that's the kind of people that I've always gravitated towards. So I just want to give that little backstory to show that, that's the person that I wanted to be around a lot because of, I can tell he had been through pain and he actually let me in and I enjoyed like being his friend. Now, the brother was like a couple years older than me. And actually at our school, like all the girls liked his brother and things like that, but not me. like I said, I'm not the type of person who likes somebody because everybody likes them or they may seem popular. Like, that's not me. To me, it's always those backstories. It's always, me getting in and learning about them because I know pain. I'm no stranger to pain. So me learning that is what helps me, is what back then always made me like attracted to people who had pain like me. So I never paid the older brother any attention. I mean, he had so many notes and letters. I mean, it was like this big bin he had. But I mean, even he didn't really respond to it. So that was nothing to me. So I just want to give that a little bit of backstory. But, eventually he, the older brother I'm speaking of, he started to try to talk to me. Like, I was with that friend one day and he came to me and he was just like, oh, he liked me and would I date him and stuff. And I just kind of looked at her and was like, okay, that's weird. I had never talked to him. Of course I had seen him because I was always at her house, but he had his own room. Everybody had their own room. I was just in her room or her mom's room. So I just kind of blew him off like, oh no. So he continued to do that, continued to pursue me. So one day I was at their house and he asked me, could I come down just to have a conversation with him? I kept saying no. He asked me like 3 times. I said yeah, eventually said yes. Now nothing happened that night, but we had a conversation. And if you remember what I said about me and conversations, I feel like people who would open their heart to me and express, the pain or traumas and things they've been in, had went through, it had always made me a little bit closer or understanding of that person. But like I said, even the older brother, he didn't talk much, but he didn't, walk around so much as if he was like angry, but he was just more reserved. So when he shared like some kind of background about their life, him and his brothers, and gave me, a little bit about whom he was, and I did the same. The conversation lasted for about 4 hours or so. Now, when I finally agreed to even go in the room and talk to him, I think it was late already, maybe like 11 or something, because it was the summer, so we had already all stayed up late. So when the conversation was over, I ended up falling asleep. Nothing happened at all. Like I said, just a simple conversation. But when the mother woke up that morning, she noticed that I was there. And from there on, she kind of acted a little funny towards me, which hurt me, honestly, because I felt like you could have just asked me. Like, I would have told you. It was just a simple conversation. He didn't touch me. I didn't touch him. But that's how she treated me. And from that day forth, the mother kind of showed me the cold shoulder, and so did the daughter. So all that kind of did, honestly, was push me a little bit more towards him in a sense, because I, hadn't done anything, had a conversation, but then he started coming over there to my neighborhood where I lived at, and he would continue to talk to me, continue to pursue me, tell me how he liked me and things like that. So the more that I was, trying to reach out to that friend, she was kind of being a little more reserved or kind of standoffish and wasn't really treating me the same. To the point where one day I called and her mother asked me, oh, are you calling to talk to her, the girl, or the guy? And it kind of started hurting my feelings how they were treating me. And if you looked at my other testimony, you'll see that I'm, used to like the rejection and people kind of treating me that way. So eventually she didn't really talk to me much, and he started pursuing me more. He started talking to me more. So he started spending time with me. That's where the false me thinking the whole love, he told me love me, blah blah blah, back and forth like that. And then eventually I lost my virginity to him. And that's not something I ever really, thought about. I was 13. I would say he's about 15. And he ended up telling me, not like right after, but sometime after that, he had only started dating me or spending time with me because it was like some kind of a dare, I guess, that he would be able to take my virginity or whatever the case was, or some kind of a point to prove. So when he used to come over there and visit me, he used to come with his brother, the one I said is my best friend, and they would come together. So it was like sometime after that, like when we were together, like of course I was deceived. I thought he cared about me because he would spend time with me. Like if girls wanted to try to fight me and stuff, he would take up for me. He wouldn't allow that. And that's how I always thought love was, people who try to take up for you and stuff like that. So eventually he stopped coming around. The calls kind of lessened. He wasn't really calling me no more. I wasn't really he wasn't really taking my calls and stuff. And for me being that young, I just wanted like a little bit of closure. Like I just kind of felt like if he didn't want to talk to me, that's fine. I would simply move on and do my own thing. But his brother would still come and visit me and hang out with me. And that's why I said, from back then, he was always my best friend because, I mean, he was just always loyal. That's just his personality. But, so eventually I was just like, forget it, let it go. And I just, didn't call or anything like that anymore. But, I mean, yeah, I guess that's pretty traumatic for a 13-year-old. But I mean, I was forgiven. I was well. As being adults, I have received apology. And that's another thing what the testimony is about, like forgiveness. You're supposed to forgive everybody. And I do believe that people can make mistakes at times, but I believe it's the ones who repent and apologize and change their ways is the ones who, has that chance with the Most High, because if you already have a repentant heart, then you're already showing the characteristics of somebody who can definitely be turned, towards the Father. So, yeah, I pretty much explained that. Like I said, the safe haven. I wanted to tell that background and say that I remember telling you guys that that was my safe haven because with my mom working and stuff all the time, my brother gone, and now my dad and her divorce, that the girl's house was my safe haven because her mother was like a stay-at-home mom, so she would take us to like to and from school, like movies, shopping, just girl things that girls would do. And she was kind of like that mother figure to me. But again, after that situation, it was like they were kind of standoffish, didn't really want to talk to me anymore, and we eventually just completely stopped hanging out. I mean, later in life, we started hanging out and talking and stuff. I had already moved, and when I would come visit the state, they would come see me and things like that. But I mean, it was never the same. And to be honest, I never myself got to explain my side of the story. But I mean, all is well. So, still 13. Well, I would say at least we lived under our own roof, which is me, my brother, my mom. Because now we had moved to another complex. Like, out of that one bedroom, we now live in a 3-bedroom apartment. I had my room. Now I have my own room, so I had my diary. And my room was my safe haven. Because like I said, after losing that friend, I still had my own room. I had my own diary. And I had new friends that I had made at school. I used to sing. We used to make up dances, like appropriate little kid dances and stuff. So I still had something to cling on to, so I was okay. So still 13. My favorite Uncle Tracy, which is my mom's youngest brother, he was murdered. So he was murdered a couple blocks away from my great-grandmother's house. We got the call about midnight. So we was all in my mom's room. Me and my brother, I think maybe my niece. I'm sorry, my cousin, which is my mom's niece, her brother's daughter. So we all stood in the room. We had heard that he got shot, and we were waiting to get a call back from my grandma to see whether he was dead or alive. And he ended up being dead. And the saddest part about it is that he was changing his life from the bad and things like that. And he had an interview that Monday, and I want to say he was murdered that Saturday. It had to be Friday or Saturday. I want to say in between. It could have been late night. And because I remember thinking like, asking why didn't he show up, for work? Like, oh, where is he? And they had to tell him, that he was murdered. So that was just devastating in itself. And the lady was in super shock. I guess she had heard all excuses in her life, but never something so serious as such. So I remember at the funeral that I had refused to cry at his funeral. Okay, so I was just sick of pain at this point. So I was just feeling like no matter what crying I had, no matter what tears I did, like it didn't make the situation better. It didn't change the situation. The situation was still there. So I didn't cry at my Uncle Tracy's funeral. Like I just tried to be strong, and it was extremely sad, but I just felt like tears have never helped me, and they weren't going to help me. So at that point it was just like, I just didn't cry. So I was like, okay, well, at least I had my safe haven. At least I got my room still, got my diary still. And I used to sit there all the time, listen to these sad musics, like reminiscent of the past, like, like family songs and things, as such when my parents were still together. So I was like, well, at least I still got my diary, my safe haven, my room, then I'm fine, Then it says, well, I was wrong. So just as soon as we moved in our own place, less than a year, we'd move again. But this time, we left from the suburbs in Bolingbrook, and people from Chicago know what I'm talking about. We left out there where I grew up at and called home, and we moved to the south side of Chicago, which is, you know, the neighborhood we was living in was considered as rough, and a lot of people who live in Chicago or even visit Chicago, they consider Chicago as a bad, you know, not the whole thing, but certain areas like bad places and rough places to live. And the one we lived, the neighborhood we moved to was considered as one of those. So basically, my mom, she had took a seasonal job at the post office, and she met a man, which I didn't know at the time. I figured this out later. So, you know, so basically she announced that we were moving. It was so fast I could barely catch my breath because, like I said, we had just moved into the 3-bedroom apartment. My brother had his own room, me and my mother also. So I was finally feeling some kind of stability. I was able to walk to school. I was in walking distance, so I didn't even have to depend on that friend as much either for that safe haven. And my brother, it was a bus that came to get him, but he was driving at the time. And then my mom, she worked across the street. Like, she could literally walk out the complex and be at work. So I thought, wow, perfect setup. And then my dad would still, you know, come see us and stuff. Come see me and my brother. So I'm like, okay, perfect. You know, I was feeling a lot better than I was when we first moved away from my dad and I had to live with that man and all the confusion and just all that stuff. So after that, I was shocked, you know, that she had met this man at this job, the seasonal job, and she was just saying that we were moving, like, just like that, you know. And I don't know if I mentioned the fact that it was my brother's senior year in high school at that time when she wanted us to pick up and move. And for those who don't know, Chicago, where we were moving, was probably about 35-40 minutes away. So of course we weren't in walking distance and, you know, things like that, of course. So basically when we ended up moving, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that the summer before moving, I and my brother, we were attending like this church on our own, in like the neighborhood and stuff. We were going on our own. My mom would drop us off. I just want to say that at that church, we definitely felt the presence of God. And we would like to sing, and we would go to like the little teen nights and groups and stuff. And they had some kind of Bible camp that I had went to over the weekend. And it actually made me want to change my life and give my life over. And it gave me a lot of joy and stuff. But the way that they taught is that they actually made me fear God, but they did it in the wrong way. Because I was like, okay, well, I want to get saved, you know, I want to change my life and everything. But the people told us that, like, once we give our lives to God, that a lot of bad stuff will start happening to us. Now, I was only like, you know, 12, 13 or something. So I stayed away because I thought that, you know, they were saying it in a negative way, like, because they were talking about, like, you know, like sleep paralysis and, you know, like demons holding us down, all this kind of stuff to little kids. And I want to say this to say that anyone who does consider themselves as a pastor or minister or whatever, I think that when children, like teens, are trying to come to your congregation, you need to have pray for wisdom and have proper knowledge on teaching them this, because I don't have a problem with them teaching the fact that things will be fearful and that things will change in our life when we go to God. However, I think that they need wisdom on how to speak to certain age groups and not just tell us all the fearful things that will happen, but explain to us that we can combat these things and that things can change, because that directly right there was what was my my falling away, because I wanted to go near, I wanted to go higher and go better. But when they were saying like, oh, all these bad things are going to happen to you, demons are going to hold you down in your sleep, of course, being a kid, that scared me away. So I just want to say that anyone who is doing that, it's important to always explain the truth, which is that fearful things will happen, but also explain in depth that we can overcome and we can fight these things, and explain that, you know, nobody can is more powerful than Jesus, and that we will get through this, Yeshua HaMashiach. But that wasn't explained to me, so I want to insert that to let, you know, people know that we did have a church also out there that my brother and I went to, and that we would go to like the little teen groups with, and we would go on our own. My mom would drop us off. So I want to explain that too, that when we moved away, we were no longer going there anymore. So after the guy, oh, okay, I guess it's really not in order. It's kind of jumping around because it says after the guy who took my virginity away, I went through the motions. I went through like the motions and stuff because it says due to TV being my teacher, I thought that sex meant love, or that you're supposed to. I thought you're supposed to do this when you're dating. So when I was young, like due to the TV raising me, I thought that, you know, that's what love meant. And I thought that when you're dating someone, that that's what's supposed to happen, you know, due to TV. Sorry, you're in my light. So yeah, due to TV, I thought that that's what was supposed to happen, because I can't say that anyone taught me or showed me otherwise, because by my dad leaving at, I was about 11, you know, I didn't have like the talk about like sex and stuff. And my mom, she didn't have a sex talk with me, but we'll get to that in this video. So let me see. It says, so the rest of my summer, 7th and 8th grade year, I just carelessly slept with older guys, and I truly blocked that memory out. And I can't tell you, you know, like the number or anything, because I truly hated myself. So I want to bring that back up to say that after that relationship, I kind of lost an identity of self, because like I said, I thought that that's, you know, what love meant, and that's what is supposed to happen when you're dating. So after that relationship, it was just like through the rest of that year, like that 7th grade year and a little bit of the 8th grade, that's what I did, because I thought that that's what love meant. And I just kind of, I guess, suppressed my feelings of what had happened in a relationship and how I actually felt about myself. So now I guess we can go back to the story when I was saying how we were living in this place that I had some stability in, and now we were going to move basically again. So it says my heart was broken because my mom wanted to move this man into our new place in Chicago. Okay, my brother refused to move in with him or any man other than my dad. So my brother went to go live with my grandma. She also lived in Chicago, but she lived maybe like 10, 15 minutes away from where we were staying. So I was left there with a man who hated me. And he just literally hated me just for existing. Like I didn't even do anything to him. So it was very uncomfortable for me to be living in the house with my mom and brother. And then now, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I didn't even meet that guy or know of that guy's existence until we moved out of the house. So when she told my brother and I were moving to Chicago, like she didn't tell us at the time it was because of man or because she met a man. She made up some excuse, maybe about it being expensive. I don't know. So as we were packing, the man came in to help us move out. So then it was like, okay, who's this guy? So she had to tell us at that point who this guy was. And that guy had already lived in Chicago. So, you know, I'm putting two and two together. Like, okay, wow. So we're picking up our whole life and uprooting ourselves for this man with no children. But I'm like, okay. So at that point, living in this house with this man in Chicago, it like bothered me a lot. You know, I don't know this man. This man doesn't like me. He doesn't talk to me. It's very uncomfortable. So all it's doing is making me isolate myself even more. Again, my brother's in high school, so he's hanging out with his friends doing his own things. I worry about little old me. And the way that I'm feeling, I'm not really expressing it to my dad, because like since I was little, my mother always told us, keep everything in the house. Don't tell our business. So basically I'm just existing. Okay. So I would party a lot, like with older guys, my cousins. I stayed in my room a lot, had my diary. We would go to a lot of parties and stuff. So like dancing, we would be going to like, you know, different parties and things like that they had in Chicago. I still did my nightly prayers that my dad taught us when he was little, but church was now a distant thing. That's not something that I was really attending anymore. So we left our convenient location, like I said, for a man, and I mentioned already how close everything was as far as my brother's school, my mom's job, and all that thing. But what gets worse is that I'm sorry. And I recently found out that my dad had told me that when my mother had told him that it was too expensive to stay out there, he offered to give her more money for us to stay out there in that environment, in that community, for our schools and for safety. And she refused it. So I didn't even know that until literally a couple months ago. And this has all happened back when I was 13. So basically I said 13. Thank goodness I'm almost 14. Okay, so now we're in Chicago. So now I got to worry about gangs, the different gangs, shootings, cliques, sets, the streets, and who's who, who's beefing with who, where, and what, like that. All the things I didn't have to worry about in Bolingbrook. Now, okay, Bolingbrook had their like little, you know, they're like, it was like smaller gangs and cliques and stuff, but everybody like lived kind of basically in different little complexes. But in Chicago, it's actually like there's certain like numbers like to the streets and certain streets and stuff where people are different gangs and different sets. And no, it's not like what you see on movies as far as like, oh, colors. You can't just look at somebody's outfit and tell what gang they're in or where they're from. Most people knew each other because a lot of them grew up on those streets and neighborhoods. I mean, since they were kids, and they still reside there. But for me, you know, that wasn't the case. I didn't grow up there. I didn't live there. I didn't know who was who, what was what, where was where. But it's like I had to figure out these things because when I moved to those neighborhoods, again, my brother moved with my grandma like 15 minutes away in another neighborhood, and I moved to one pretty much on my own, my mom and that man. And if I own my mom and that man, or my mom, I'm pretty much on my own anyways, if as you'll later find out. So basically, when we first got around there, I was with my cousin and my friend, and a group of guys ranged from age 17 to 21 kind of approached us. So basically, we lied and said we were in high school. At the time, I believe we were 8th grade or going to 8th grade, something like that. And I said I'd soon be 16, but I was really going to be 14 soon. And I ended up dating a 21-year-old. And to be honest, my main reason for doing it, I mean, was protection, really, because I had, you know, I always had issues everywhere I went with girls. Like, even when we got there, people was trying to fight us and stuff, just to the fact we were new and all this clique stuff that we didn't want to deal with. But, I mean, the guy was cool and everything, but I was also used to always dating somebody. And at the same time, I felt like living there, dating the guy, I was able to learn, like, about the different blocks, about the different gangs, about the different sets. Like, nobody messed with me because of knowing that person or whatever. I guess they were from there and had lived there their whole life. So that was another reason. And it's like everywhere I went, as you'll see in my testimonies later go on, I kind of had to cling to someone basically for survival. So I was in 8th grade at that time, but I was still going to school out in Bolingbrook. So I told the guy I was in high school. Obviously, he wouldn't have known what high school I was in anyways. And I lied about my age. So, yeah, he didn't know what, you know, grade or anything that I was in or anything. So, I also want to mention, too, when I was like 13, I want to say I was 13, but it could have been 13, 14. That was the year that I had got my, my nose pierced because my mother actually took me to get my nose pierced. I guess she didn't see a problem with me getting my nose pierced at 13 years old. So, yeah, my brother had refused to switch high schools because it was his senior year. And I was sick of changing schools because already from the year of 2002, by the end of 2014, I had been in 4 different schools. So senior year for my brother, he drove us to school. So by her wanting to move out there with that man, she did it, like I said, my brother's senior year. So he had to drive about 35 to 40 minutes every day, daily, in the morning and in the evening, like taking us to school. He would drop me off at a friend's house because he started school first. And then I would like walk to school with her in that area. And then in the evening, I guess he would hang out with his friends a little bit. And then he would come pick me up once I got out of school because he got out a little earlier than me. So basically, he was exhausted with this schedule because I know people may say, oh, it's just 35, 40 minutes. And I'm talking about that's probably without traffic. And also, you got to realize that him being in high school, that's still causing him to have to wake up even earlier. And then he's still going to bed late. Then he still has his own homework or whatever else he's doing. And he's already staying up late. Like I said, he's in high school. So he was driving this drive every day, at least 5 days a week, taking us to and from school so that we can stay in our same schools to finish out the years. And basically, the scary part about that would be is my brother, he would fall asleep behind the wheel driving. Like, when we were in the car together, I mean, obviously he wouldn't fall completely asleep because by me being in the car, I'm telling him, I'm trying to wake him up, like putting water on his face, talking, whatever I could do to keep him up. And that was actually a very stressful time for me because it gave me really bad anxiety, like seeing him fall asleep while we're on the freeway. And the thing about it is, I told my mom this. I told my mom and my I want to say my grandma and dad. I told them he would fall asleep behind the wheel while we're driving. I would let them know, because to me it was serious, the fact that this is occurring and we're riding in the car, and especially on the freeway. And I would let them know. So it wasn't like, my mom didn't know, because I definitely told her. So I definitely thank God for not letting us die, on those times he was commuting. And it actually stressed me out, because I would think about the times that he must have fell asleep when I wasn't in the car. Like, who was waking him up then, who was making sure he was okay. So that was a big stressor for me, even as a young kid, concerned about the fact that my brother is falling asleep behind the wheel. So, in fact, later in life, my brother actually did fall asleep behind the wheel. And no, I was not in the car, but that story is for another day. So, those drives home were always very stressful and very, very unpleasing. So I think I have a little time left. I'll do a little bit of 14, because it's pretty much the same stuff that I was doing at 13. It was just kind of continued on. So shortly after 8th grade, 8th grade starting, senior year for my brother, I was now 14 and my brother was 17. I was 14 when my mom and I had what she felt was the talk, okay? Which people don't know what that is. I'm talking about like sexual intercourse talk. So she said that she was placing me on birth control because one of my closest cousins, I guess her mother had called and told her that her daughter was sexually active. So she goes, well, they're best friends. They're really close. So if she's on it, she needs to be on it. So I guess that was our talk. And because my cousin, and basically her talk was that you guys are young. I know you guys are going to do it anyways. We can't stop y'all, tell y'all what to do. So basically we just want y'all to be on birth control to be safe, basically. I mean, that was the talk. I mean, we didn't talk about nothing. We didn't talk about, I can't tell you anything, because we didn't talk about anything. That was the talk. I'm going to take you to the doctor. You're going to get on this birth control. We know y'all going to do it anyways. And that was basically our talk. So I was already on birth control pills before freshman year of high school started. And I knew that for a fact because I remembered it, because I remember I had to take it every day at the same time. And I remember it would be lunchtime and I was a freshman. And I remember being embarrassed that I had to take these pills. And I was sitting at lunch with my friends, this guy and girl I used to sit with. And they were so small, the pills, so they didn't even know what I was doing. I would just sneak the pill out. And while we were having lunch together, I would hurry up and chug it down, because we had to take it every day at the same time. So I knew that I was taking this stuff in 8th grade, because I remember freshman year, I had already was on rotation. I had the alarm clock on my phone. So, that's something looking back that was just like crazy. But so basically the summer of 14, by the time 8th grade ended, I mean, you could probably guess, we had moved again, okay, to another part of Chicago. So it wasn't far away, but it was a different neighborhood, different gang, different hoods, different cliques, etc. You know what I mean? So, and people from there would understand that you could simply move 15 minutes down the road and you're already in a different set of gangs and all that kind of stuff. So basically we settled in, maybe by like May or June. And I'm talking about to the new house in Chicago we moved to when I was 14. So we had just settled in by May or June. We had lived in the first house in Chicago, I don't even want to say a year. Maybe, I don't know, close to a year. And then this new place, we had just got there in May or June. So I'm going to say by July, August, okay, her and her boyfriend was already telling me that we were going to soon move again. But the kicker is, it's even worse than I thought. Now she was saying we're going to move to Hawaii. So, of course, I didn't believe it. It's like, okay, the Chicago thing was already a bit much, but Hawaii, that's whatever. So I kind of blew it off. So now it's my freshman year started. Okay, so I moved in with a friend during the week to be able to go to high school in the suburbs, because remember, now my brother had graduated. So he was like, okay, I'm not going to be driving to and forth out here. I'm not even in school anymore. So I worked out a situation where I could go stay with her during the week, because her dad and mom had separated. So it was just him taking care of her. And he worked a lot. So it was kind of like when he went to work, when he got home from work, we were sleeping. And then it was like when he went to work, we were at school. So we never really seen each other. We probably seen him maybe once or twice a week on the weekends or something, if I happened to be out there. So basically we were still like hanging out and stuff, hanging out with guys and all kind of things like that. Because I mean, he was at work and everything. And Yeah, it's actually a funny story about him because one day he came home unexpectedly, and thank goodness nothing was going on. We were all just sitting there talking and laughing, and he came in, and the guys were sitting there, and they're older than us. They were older than us, so I mean, of course, they were fearful because it was like, oh man, older than them, and he just came in and told them like pretty much.
Y'all better get out of here.
Right. He was like, y'all better get out of here. And he was like, it was funny. Like the person watching this who will know who they are, their dad is, and it was pretty funny. So, I stayed out there with them for a little bit because my brother had graduated, and I sit out there. So I'm like, okay, now I'm not talking to the guy, anymore in Chicago because, like I said, I had moved from the neighborhood, talked to him a little bit longer. And the thing about it is, the guy in Chicago, like he was 21. My mother actually knew he was 21, and my stepdad knew. Nobody said anything. Nobody had a problem with it. And looking back on my life, it's just like, wow. So anyways, now I'm back out there, going to the school, living with my friend. And, I met a guy my freshman year, kind of like an elect class. People know elective classes because it's like you can be all different grades in that class. And he was a senior, I was a freshman. So basically, like, I was hurt already by everything that was going on in my life, everything that was happening, all the moving, the divorce, the things that I had been going through, these simple tragedies just from then until now, the age of 14. So basically, the fact that he had like spoke to me and noticed me, and I say spoke to me and noticed me because I was like, I don't want to say a complete tomboy, but basically, like, I never dressed for attention. I wasn't showing my body, wearing makeup, weave, or nothing like that. So to me, somebody who just wanted to talk to just me, like I said, I'm dressed and all that stuff. It was like, it was kind of a warming feeling because it was like everywhere I feel like I turned, it just felt like vultures. Everybody was like around to attack me, whether it was at home with that guy my mom was with, or just everybody I just kept meeting and the things that kept happening in my life. So basically, we began to date right when school started. So I guess you could say August, but it was very short lived because by November I was snatched away and I had to move to Hawaii. So when I told you guys I didn't believe I was really going to Hawaii, I guess it was a serious thing. So I just want to put that story in there to say this, because it seemed like every time I felt a little comfort or a little security, it seemed like it was always snatched away. Like how I said when we first moved, after my dad, I still had the comfort and security of that friend, that safe haven. Then when the guy that came along, her foster brother, and that situation happened between us, okay, I couldn't go over there no more. Then it was like, okay, when we move into our own apartment, that's fine. I have new friends now. I can walk to school. Then it's like, okay, that's snatched away. Now we're going to the city. Okay, now I'm in the city. I found these guys that I hang out with now. I have protection. I have comfort. Nobody's messing with me. Okay, now we're moving to another part of the city. Now when I get over there, I still knew those guys, but then when she dropped the hoe and moved to Hawaii, I kind of stopped talking to them a lot. And plus, I had moved back out there to go to school. So I want to say that every time I had a little comfort or security, it's like it was snatched away. Because now I'm going to Hawaii, I wouldn't be by my brother, my dad, my old friends, my other family. So it was just, keep getting worse and worse. So I left to Hawaii in like November 2004, and I would turn 15 the next month. So I had just started my freshman year, like I said, so I was almost done with my it was like the first semester of my freshman year. So this is the end of me being 14, thank goodness. So I was 14, almost 15. I was at the airport heading to Hawaii. So I had a phone call with my dad and then my brother, whom never I saw in person before leaving. Now, this day was horrible for me because I had cried and begged for days not to go. But none of this worked, okay? I didn't know the exact day myself, so my dad and my brother, they didn't find out until I really got there. Like, I don't know if my brother knew, but I know my dad didn't know for sure. So basically, I flew alone to Hawaii. My mother and the guy didn't come until a couple of weeks later. But I had a cousin that stayed there, or with his girlfriend, so I went to go stay with them for a couple of weeks. And I remember I called my brother and then my father from the airport, and they both cried on the phone. how they missed me, and it was just that was very actually traumatic for me, because I knew that this time it was serious. Like all the moves I had went through, I knew that this time I wouldn't see them for a very long time. The fact that I had to take a plane to move somewhere, I knew that that was extremely far and I wasn't going to see them for a very long time. So that was extremely traumatic to me, to be on the phone and my dad's crying and I'm crying, because I had always held in so much stuff, but to know how close my dad was and I wasn't going to be able to see him at all, like for a long time, like I was crying. And my brother, it was like very emotional too, because by us being siblings and everything, him being older than me, I knew he cared about me and everything. It's just that he had his own thing, I had my own thing going. But he was extremely sad. They were both extremely sad, and none of us really knew the day I was leaving, because now looking back, I know that I had like a standby ticket. So it was up to the lady, her job, because she works for the airport, my cousin's girlfriend, to let us know like what best days I could come or when it was available and stuff. So it was devastating for me, and it was extremely more sad to even be on that plane by myself. It was about 8 hours, almost 9, and flying alone, leaving everything behind. I probably was able to bring one suitcase, so no, I couldn't bring my journals with my poems and diaries and stuff. And it was just completely devastating, and it sucked. I know I probably shouldn't say that word, but it didn't feel good. So, I mean, it's more from here. I just did 13 and 14, so the next video will probably be 15 and 16. So yeah, I just want to share some more of that, and the series will continue. And I guess that's all I gotta say. God bless.